voices. Some objects whisper tales, some scream. This is a story about such an object found in a dusty corner of an old antique shop. It was a place where memories faded. This object was not flashy, just a camera lens inside a plain, worn wooden box. Buried beneath old postcards, it seemed to resist being found, as if wanting to keep its dark secret locked away. But for Alex, an aspiring photographer, its anonymity was an invitation. He felt a pull, the beginning of an obsession. As he held the box, a chill crept in. A sense of being watched. He dismissed it as a draft. He was wrong. The feeling was coming from the object in his hands. Alex brought the box to the counter. The shopkeeper named a price, eager to be rid of it. Alex left, the box tucked away, excited by his treasure, a piece of photographic history. He had no idea he was about to capture something that lived in the absence of light. Back in his apartment, he placed the box on his desk. Inside, nestled in faded red velvet, was the lens. Tucked into the lid was a folded piece of yellowed paper, a note. It contained 3 words, a chilling instruction. The note read, "Do not use." Alex stared at the note. A cryptic, anonymous warning was not proof. He dismissed it. It was his first and most critical mistake. The vintage lens clicked smoothly onto his modern camera. Alex looked through the viewfinder. The colors were muted with a soft vignette, perfect for street photography. He took a test shot of the street below. He pressed the shutter, reviewing the image. The vintage effect was beautiful. The focus was sharp, the background blurred. Zooming in, he saw something wrong, a distortion. A shadow clung to the man, a flaw in the light. He dismissed it as a lens flare and deleted the image, unaware of the terror he had just captured. Alex grabbed his camera bag as the sun began its slow descent. It was the golden hour, the perfect time for photography. With the old lens attached, he left his apartment, hunting for light downtown. He was an artist on a mission. He was hunting for light, but something else was now hunting with him. He moved through the crowd, capturing fleeting moments. He raised the camera to his eye again and again. The lens performed beautifully, rendering the city with a timeless quality. Each click of the shutter felt significant. He was so absorbed in the act of creation that he failed to notice the cold. He also failed to notice the subtle changes in the world around him when viewed through the lens. The lens was not just capturing the world, it was reframing it, tilted towards something sinister. He was the photographer, but he was no longer the only one in control. Back in his apartment, Alex transferred the day's photos to his computer. The large monitor revealed the true quality of the images. He began to click through the files. The first few images were stunning. The lens had a character he had never seen before, or so he thought. It was the picture of the couple on the park bench, but as he looked closer, his smile faded. The smudge. This time it was nestled in the space between the two of them. He zoomed in, his brow furrowed in concentration. More smudges. They were all unmistakably the same phenomenon. This was a pattern. The smudges, these dark parasitic shadows, were attached to people. A cold dread washed over Alex as he stared at the screen. What was he looking at? The next day, Alex woke before dawn, haunted by the images from his camera. He needed answers. Was the lens broken? Or was it revealing something real? He snapped photos of objects in his own hand, nothing unusual. But when he aimed at people in the park, the shadows returned, dark, formless shapes clinging to them. He photographed everyone he could see. The pattern was undeniable. The shadows only appeared on people. Some were faint, others dense and heavy, but they were always there. The lens was exposing a terrifying secret about the world. Alex realized they were never alone. Terror and curiosity warred inside Alex. He saw people living their lives oblivious to the shadows only he could see. He documented everything, noting the size and density of each shadow. Patterns emerged. Children's shadows were faint, the elderly's darker, but there were exceptions. Theories crumbled as he saw happy people with heavy shadows and frail ones with none. Alone in his apartment, surrounded by photos, Alex understood. The lens was a key to a hidden, horrifying reality, and he was the only one who could see it. One who Alex's obsession shifted. He needed to know the lens's origin. He returned to the antique shop, pressing the reluctant shopkeeper for records. After much persistence, he was given all ledgers to search. Hours passed as Alex combed through cryptic entries. He was searching for a single clue, a mention of the lens's past. The answer, he believed, was buried in these dusty pages. He chased a ghost on paper, desperate for the truth. As daylight faded, Alex found it. Box of old photo gear, including brass lens, the source and estate clearance for Elias Thorne. Alex snapped a photo of the ledger and rushed home to investigate. Online he found Thorne's obituary, an old photographer, no family, little fanfare. Digging deeper, Alex discovered Thorne's name linked to portraits of people who died tragically soon after. The pattern was chilling. Thorne had owned the lens, and perhaps like Alex, had uncovered its curse. The news archives told a story of tragedy. Old news articles revealed a string of untimely deaths, models, politicians, artists, all photographed by Elias Thorne shortly before their demise. Each story was eerily similar. Sudden, inexplicable tragedy. Alex imagined Thorne discovering the lens's secret, connecting the photos to the deaths. The lens wasn't just revealing shadows, it was a harbinger of doom. Thorne had spent his life documenting its victims, powerless to stop it. The curse was real, and now Alex was its latest witness. The weight of this knowledge was suffocating. Alex visited Thorne's abandoned house, learning his archives were preserved at the city's historical archive. There, a stern archivist handed him a box of Thorne's journals and photos. Early entries brimmed with artistic passion, but soon turned to fear. Thorne saw the same shadows. He called the lens the sorrow, believing it fed on life, or revealed hidden decay. Thorne tried to destroy it, but failed. The final journal entry was a warning. It shows them what they are. Point it at yourself, and it will show you what you will become. Do not look in the glass. Alex stared at the lens, the warning echoing in his mind. Elias Thorne's journals confirmed the nightmare. Alex left the archive a changed man. The world looked different. The knowledge was a heavy burden. He read Thorne's warning, do not look in the glass, but an earlier entry burrowed into his mind. Thorne tried to predict tragedies but failed. This failure became Alex's obsession. With technology, Alex could succeed where Thorn failed and crack the code. He spent every moment on his grim project. His apartment was now a laboratory of dread. Walls were covered with photos. He photographed people constantly, documenting the darkness. His life began to unravel. The only thing that mattered was the lens. He ate little, slept less. His world shrank. He was chasing a ghost. He ignored the warnings of the lens's corrupting influence. Exhilaration was replaced by desperate intensity. He felt like a prophet who could see the coming doom. He failed to see the shadow enveloping him. His friends started to worry. Sarah showed up at his apartment with takeout. She found the door unlocked and was shocked by the state of the apartment. The chaos, the strange photos, the oppressive energy. Alex barely looked up, mumbling about patterns and shadows. To Sarah, it sounded like a psychotic break. Then Alex had an idea. Sarah, a new variable. He grabbed the camera, wanting to take one picture to make her understand. He raised the camera, and behind her he saw the shadow. He pressed the shutter. He had just made a terrible mistake. Alex showed Sarah the photo, his voice trembling. He pointed to a faint smudge on her shoulder. Sarah saw nothing extraordinary, nothing that justified his madness. She tried to be gentle, suggesting it was a flaw in the lens and that he needed help. But her words fueled his anger. He insisted the shadow was a warning, telling her about the curse. Her concern deepened into fear. The conversation escalated. Sarah begged him to stop, told him he was scaring her. He saw it as an attack. He felt betrayed, heartbroken. Sarah left, telling him not to call until he got help. This thing is destroying you. He had pushed away the one person who cared for his terrible knowledge. He was alone with his obsession. After Sarah left, isolation pushed Alex further into the world of the lens. He abandoned any pretense of a normal life, becoming a hermit, a prisoner of his discovery. His perception of reality began to shift. Even when he wasn't looking through the camera, he started to see things. The photographs of Sarah became his focus. He loaded a new image onto his computer and placed it side by side with the first one. The shadow was darker, it had grown. His experiment was yielding terrifying results. He looked at the lens. Do not look in the glass. The temptation, however, was becoming unbearable. The days blurred, Alex's world shrinking. His research seemed to close in as he proved his theory. The knowledge was a conviction. He had interfered. He had painted a target. He had to know what he had done. There was only one subject left. The warning, do not look in the glass, was inevitable. It was the final piece. He had to see his own shadow. A chilling calm settled over him. He picked up the camera. It was a small, sterile space with a large mirror. He stood before the mirror. He was looking at himself. The final experiment was about to begin. He lifted the camera slowly, the motion feeling heavy and deliberate, like a ritual. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drum beat in the silent room. He looked at his reflection through his own eyes, then lowered his gaze to the camera in his hands. He was about to break the ultimate rule, to disobey the final warning from the one man who understood this curse. Thorn had warned him not to look in the glass, not to point the lens at his own image, but Thorn was dead. Thorn had failed. Alex, in his hubris, believed he needed to see it for himself, to document the ultimate truth. He raised the camera to his eye, his knuckles white as he gripped the plastic body. The world vanished, replaced by the small, dark rectangle of the viewfinder. Through the cursed glass, his own reflection stared back at him. The bathroom behind his reflected image seemed to warp and distort, the edges vignetting into a deep, inky blackness. Although the light, all the focus was pulled toward the figure in the center, toward him. He saw his own face, pale and filled with a terrible self-destructive curiosity, and he saw the shadow. It was there, it was attached to him, it was not like the others. The shadows he had seen on strangers, on Sarah, were formless smudges, clinging to them like patches of smoke. His was different, it was vast, dark and dense, a complete absence of light that seemed to swallow the image. It enveloped his entire form in the reflection, a perfect, chilling silhouette. It was not clinging to him, it was wearing him like a suit of darkness. For a moment he forgot to breathe. He was looking at a portrait of his own damnation, a visual confirmation of the obsession that had consumed him whole. His finger hovered over the shutter button. This was the point of no return. Taking the picture felt like signing a contract, written in blood. The click of the shutter would be the final, irrevocable act. He could still stop. He could lower the camera, smash the lens, and run out into the sunlight. But he knew he wouldn't. The obsession had its own gravity, and it was pulling him into the abyss. With a final shuddering breath, a silent surrender to the inevitable, he pressed the button. The sharp click of the shutter echoed in the small room, a sound like a lock snapping shut on a tomb. He lowered the camera, his hand shaking so violently that he almost dropped it. He didn't need to look at the screen to know what he had captured. He had seen it with his own eyes through the viewfinder. He had seen the shape of his own ruin. He stared at his reflection in the mirror, no longer mediated by the cursed lens. He looked normal, pale, terrified, but normal. There was no vast, dark silhouette. There was only him. But the image he had seen through the lens was now burned into his mind, an after-image on his soul. He knew what was there just beyond his sight. He raised his eyes to meet his reflection's gaze, and then it happened, something impossible, something that shattered the final, fragile barrier of his sanity. The shadow in the mirror moved. It was not his own movement. He was standing perfectly still, frozen in terror, but his reflection, or rather the darkness that he knew was there within his reflection, shifted. It was a subtle, fluid motion, like ink spreading in water. The silhouette behind the glass seemed to detach itself from his reflected form. It was no longer a shadow, it was a separate entity. He watched, paralyzed, as the inky blackness began to coalesce. It pulled itself away from the freckly, reflected image of his back, gathering its formless shape into something more defined. It was still a creature of pure shadow, but it now had a terrifying sense of dimension and purpose. It was inside the mirror looking out at him, and then it reached for him, a tendril of pure darkness, a long smoky arm stretched out from the surface of the mirror. It was not a reflection. It was a physical thing, pushing against the boundary between its world and his. The glass of the mirror seemed to bend, to warp inward under the pressure. A low groaning sound filled the room, the sound of stressed glass. Then a sharp crack echoed and a thin, jagged line appeared on the mirror's surface, originating from the point where the shadow arm was pressing. The crack spread like a spider web, fracturing his reflection into 100 terrified pieces. The boundary was breaking The thing that Elias Thorne had warned him about was happening. The lens didn't just show you the shadow. When you looked at yourself, it showed the shadow the way back. It opened the door. The cracked mirror reflected terror. The shadow creature was breaking through. The light flickered, shadows danced. He felt a wave of ancient cold washing over him. He understood the curse. The lens wasn't a window, but a key to his own cage. He stumbled, fell, and scrambled away. The shadowy arm retracted. His gaze fell on the camera. He realized Thorne's warning. It shows you what you will become. The shadow wasn't an attachment, but his future self. The silhouette flowed back into his image, merging seamlessly. His eyes now glowed with inner darkness. The shadow was no longer in the mirror, it was inside him. The man who walked out of the apartment building was not the same man who had stumbled into the bathroom. He moved with a new, unsettling stillness, a confidence that was cold and absolute. The wild, frantic energy that had consumed Alex for weeks was gone, replaced by a profound and chilling calm. His eyes, once wide with terror and obsession, were now placid, holding a darkness that seemed to drink the light around them. He carried his camera bag over his shoulder, the weight of the cursed lens inside, no longer a burden, but a familiar and integral part of him. The shadow was no longer a thing to be seen or documented. It was now the one looking out. He walked with purpose through the city streets, the very streets he had once stalked as a frantic observer, but he was not looking for shadows anymore. The experiment was over, the conclusion reached. He saw the people passing by, the bustling, vibrant life of the city, and felt nothing. No fear, no empathy, no curiosity. They were simply shapes in motion, oblivious to the true nature of the world, unaware of the silent passengers they carried. He possessed a knowledge they could never comprehend, a truth that had hollowed him out and filled him with something ancient and cold. His path led him back to the beginning, back to the dusty antique shop on the forgotten side street. The old shopkeeper was there, dozing in his chair behind the counter, the afternoon sun casting a warm glow through the grimy window. Alex entered, and the small bell above the door chimed, a sound that seemed too cheerful for the occasion. The shopkeeper blinked himself awake, his gaze falling upon Alex. He did not recognize the haunted, gaunt creature who had been in his shop weeks ago. He saw only a calm, well-dressed young man, a potential customer. Alex approached the counter and placed the old wooden box upon it. It looked exactly as it had the day he bought it. He opened the lid, revealing the brass and glass lens nestled in its faded velvet bed. He had even replaced the small yellowed note with the 3 stark words, "Do not use." "I have an item I'd like to sell," Alex said, his voice smooth and even, betraying no emotion. He had become the new owner, the next link in the chain, and now he was becoming the new seller, ensuring the cycle would continue. The shopkeeper saw only a beautiful piece of vintage equipment. He picked up the lens, admiring its craftsmanship. He peered through the glass, noting its clarity. He glanced at the note, "Do not use," and chuckled. He and Alex haggled. A price was agreed upon. The transaction was complete. The lens had changed hands. Alex walked out of the shop. He did not care who its next victim would be. His role was over. A new symbiosis had begun. The lens sat on the counter, a patient predator. The shopkeeper placed it on a shelf. Its brass casing caught the light. The curse was reset. The story of the lens does not end with Alex. It is a story that repeats. Another might be walking into that dusty shop. Their eyes might be drawn to the glint of old brass. They will feel a pull. They will see the warning and dismiss it. They will be thrilled by the unique images the lens creates. They will see the world in a new light. And then they will see the smudges. They will see the dark shapes. Their journey will begin. They will follow the same path. The lens will offer them a terrible knowledge. It will ask for a look in the mirror. A new shadow will break through the glass. The lens is still out there, and it is waiting.